The massive council chambers stretched out like a golden cathedral, its walls lined with the flags of 12 different alien species. Soft light filtered through crystal windows, casting rainbow patterns across the polished floor. In the center of this grand room sat the council table, a perfect circle of black stone that had witnessed 300 years of galactic politics. Hyunwoo Kim adjusted his simple blue tie and checked his notes one last time. As Earth's ambassador to the Galactic Council, he had learned to present humanity's requests with just the right amount of humility. Too confident, and the Council would remind him of humanity's place. Too weak, and they would ignore him completely. After 3 years in this position, he had found the perfect balance. Honored Council members, Hyunwoo began, his voice carrying the slight nervousness that the aliens expected from humans. I come before you today with a proposal for expanding the medical exchange program between Earth and the outer colonies. Counselor Vextai of the Hegemony leaned back in his chair, his forearms crossed in obvious boredom. His purple skin gleamed under the chamber lights, and his large black eyes showed the same tired expression he wore whenever humans spoke. To his left, Counselor Mordun of the Trade Federation tapped his clawed fingers against the table in an annoying rhythm. Another medical program? Vextai asked, his voice dripping with fake politeness. How generous of humanity to offer their primitive healing methods to more advanced civilizations. Soft laughter rippled around the council table. Hyunwoo pretended not to notice the insult and continued with his presentation. He showed charts about human medical research, talked about cooperation between species, and used all the right diplomatic words. The council members listened with the patience adults show to small children telling boring stories. So-min Park sat behind Hyunwoo, taking careful notes on her tablet. As his chief aide, she attended every council session and recorded every word. The aliens thought she was just a secretary, but her sharp eyes caught every subtle look, every whispered comment, every small gesture of contempt. Her fingers moved quickly across the screen, documenting another day of casual humiliation. Near the back of the human delegation, Tai-Ho Choi fiddled with what looked like a simple recording device. The aliens had scanned it dozens of times and found nothing threatening about the primitive human technology. They never bothered to look too closely at the humble technical assistant who always seemed slightly confused by the advanced alien equipment around him. The medical supplies would be transported using standard shipping routes, Hyunwoo explained, showing a map of human trade paths. We estimate the program could help approximately 50,000 colonists in the first year. Counselor Zalnath of the mining consortium yawned, showing rows of sharp teeth. 50,000. How wonderfully small scale. The humans think so, practically. More chuckles echoed through the chamber. Hyunwoo smiled politely and nodded. We prefer to start small and build trust, Counselor. Human wisdom teaches us that strong foundations support great achievements. Human wisdom, repeated Counselor Morden, barely hiding his smirk. Yes, we have all learned so much from human wisdom over the years. The presentation continued for another hour. Hyunwoo answered questions with patient humility, accepted suggestions that made no sense, and agreed to modifications that would make the program almost useless. Every few minutes, So-min would look up from her notes and catch another council member rolling their eyes or making faces at the naive humans. Finally, Counselor Vextai raised one of his 4 hands. The council will consider this proposal in our next session. We appreciate Earth's enthusiasm for helping their galactic neighbors. Thank you, honored council, Hyunwoo said, bowing slightly. We look forward to your wise guidance. As the human delegation gathered their materials, the council members began talking among themselves in low voices. They made no effort to hide their comments from the departing humans. Did you see how eager they were? Counselor Zalnath whispered to her neighbor. They actually think we take their ideas seriously. 3 decades of this, Morden replied, shaking his head. Still waiting for them to realize how the galaxy really works. Vextai leaned forward, his voice carrying just far enough for the humans to hear. They are like children playing at politics, so wonderfully innocent. It would be almost sad to crush that optimism, if it were not so useful. So-Min's fingers tightened around her tablet, but her face showed no emotion. Taeho continued to fumble with his equipment, looking lost and confused. Hyunwoo maintained his diplomatic smile until the chamber doors closed behind them. The walk to their transport ship took 15 minutes through the station's gleaming corridors. Other species they passed showed the same polite dismissal humans had grown used to. A group of tall, blue-skinned Altarians stopped their conversation to watch the humans pass, then immediately burst into laughter. Two robotic synthetics turned their glowing heads to scan the human delegation, their mechanical voices discussing humanity's limited processing capabilities. Inside the transport shuttle, the human delegation sat in silence as they left the council station. Through the windows, they could see the massive ships of other civilizations docked nearby. The council's own vessels were enormous, bristling with weapons and armor that made human ships look like toys in comparison. Hyunwoo stared out at the alien fleet and sighed. Same result as always. They will approve a watered-down version of our proposal in 6 months, taking credit for the idea and limiting our involvement. At least they pretend to listen, So-Min said, her voice carefully neutral. Some progress is better than none. Taeho looked up from his equipment with a confused expression. I still do not understand their scanning technology. My devices registered some very strange readings during the session. The pilot, Ginny Lee, glanced back at her passengers. As a former military officer, she had little patience for diplomacy. How do you stand it, sitting there while they mock everything about us? Patience, Captain, Hyunwoo replied. Humanity has survived this long by adapting to stronger powers. We cannot fight the entire galaxy. Cannot or will not, Jin'e asked quietly. The question hung in the air as their ship entered hyperspace, carrying them back toward Earth. Behind them, the Council Station continued its work of governing 12 civilizations with firm authority and barely hidden contempt for the newest members of their galactic community. Back in the council chambers, the alien leaders settled in for their weekly private session. These meetings happened after every human presentation, and they served an important purpose. They allowed the council to discuss their real plans without worrying about primitive human recording devices. The medical program could actually be useful, Counselor Zalneth admitted. Human biology is surprisingly resilient. We could learn from their healing methods. Of course, Vextai agreed. We take their research, improve it with proper technology, and distribute it to species that matter. The humans get to feel important and we gain valuable medical data. Counselor Mordun pulled up holographic displays showing human shipping routes and colony locations. Their transportation network has grown significantly. Perhaps it is time to limit their expansion. Agreed, said Counselor Feltar of the Defense Alliance. Human colonies are spreading too quickly. They could become a problem if left unchecked. The Council spent the next 2 hours planning humanity's future without any human input. They discussed new trade restrictions that would slow Earth's economic growth, scientific exchange programs that would give them access to human research while sharing nothing in return, and colony regulations that would force humans to settle only in designated areas. The beauty of the situation, Vextai explained to newer council members, is that humans actually believe in their own diplomatic nonsense. They think we are partners working toward galactic peace and prosperity. What about their military capabilities? Asked Counselor Nuthex of the recently joined Crystalline Dominion. The question brought laughter from the older council members. Humans? Morden chuckled. They have some primitive ships and basic weapons, but nothing that could threaten a real military power. Their entire philosophy seems based on avoiding conflict. They are herbivores pretending to be predators, Vextai added. All their talk about human history and warfare is just stories to make themselves feel important. If they were actually dangerous, would they spend 30 years asking politely for table scraps? The council session continued late into the station's night cycle. They discussed quota adjustments that would reduce human trade profits, inspection, schedules that would slow human shipping, and administrative requirements that would waste human time and resources. Every decision was designed to keep humanity weak, dependent and grateful for the Council's generous guidance. None of them noticed the small human device still recording in the chamber's waste disposal system, where Taeho had accidentally dropped it during the earlier session. The Council's advanced scanners had found nothing dangerous about the clumsy human technology, so they had not bothered to retrieve the worthless equipment. Meanwhile, the human transport ship continued its journey. The delegation sat quietly, reviewing notes and preparing reports for Earth's government. To any obse, the moment the transport ship's doors sealed shut, everything changed. Hyun-Woo Kim reached up and loosened his tie, the nervous diplomat's smile fading from his face like melting ice. His shoulders straightened, his posture shifted, and suddenly, the humble ambassador was gone. In his place stood someone else entirely, someone with cold eyes and the bearing of a career soldier. "Status report," he said, his voice now carrying an authority that would have shocked the council members. "So, Min." Park closed her tablet and pulled out a different device, one that looked nothing like the simple notepad the aliens had seen. Her fingers moved across its surface with practiced efficiency, bringing up displays that made council technology look like children's toys. "Full intelligence package downloaded," she reported. Vextai confirmed the resource extraction timeline. Morden approved the colony reduction protocols. They are moving faster than we expected. Taeho Choi stopped fumbling with his equipment and connected it to the ship's main computer. The broken device synced immediately, uploading terabytes of data collected from sensors the council's scanners had completely missed. "Audio and visual recordings are clean," he announced. "We have everything from the private session, including their discussion of Operation Clearance." Captain Ginny Lee turned from the pilot's controls, and her expression was nothing like the patient shuttle pilot the delegation had traveled with. This was the face of someone who had commanded warships and made life-or-death decisions in the depths of space. "How long before they figure out what we really are?" she asked. "They will not," Hyun-Woo replied with certainty. 3 decades of careful performance have convinced them that humans are exactly what we pretend to be. They see weakness because they expect weakness. They see stupidity because they believe we are stupid. The ship's interior began to change, as hidden panels slid open, revealing equipment that definitely did not belong on a simple diplomatic transport. Advanced communication arrays extended from concealed compartments. Weapon systems came online with quiet humming sounds. The modest civilian vessel transformed into something far more dangerous. "Incoming transmission from Earth Command," announced an artificial intelligence with a distinctly human voice. The AI's avatar appeared as a hologram, showing the face of a middle-aged Korean woman with sharp, intelligent eyes. "Ambassador Kim," the AI said, "please report." "Mission accomplished, Command," Hyun-Woo replied. "The Council has confirmed their intentions. Operation Clearance will begin within 6 months. They plan to relocate humanity to designated zones while strip mining Earth's resources." "Understood. Are you ready to proceed to Phase 1? Hyun-Woo looked around at his team. Each face showed the same grim determination. "We are ready." "Then it is time to stop pretending. Activate Protocol 7. The ship's communication system came alive with encrypted signals bouncing between hidden relay stations throughout human space. For 30 years, Earth had been building a network that the Council never suspected existed. While the aliens congratulated themselves on keeping humanity weak, humans had been preparing for this day. So Min pulled up tactical displays showing the true scope of human military capabilities. The modest fleet the Council had observed around Earth was just a small fraction of humanity's real strength. Hidden shipyards and asteroid belts, secret bases in distant systems, and weapons platforms disguised as civilian structures had been growing quietly for decades. "Dr. Min Ho Yang is standing by," the AI announced. "Shall I connect him?" "Yes." The hologram shifted to show a man in his 50s wearing a military uniform that bore no resemblance to the simple clothes the Council had seen on human diplomats. Dr. Yang's laboratory was visible behind him, filled with technology that looked centuries ahead of anything the aliens possessed. "Ambassador," Dr. Yang said, "our reverse engineering projects are complete. We have not only matched Council technology, we have improved it significantly. Their weapons, their shields, their engines, we can build better versions of everything. They have. What about their advantages in numbers? Jinai asked. Numbers matter less when you have superior technology, Dr. Yang replied. Our new ships are faster, more heavily armed, and better defended than anything in the Council fleet. One human destroyer can now engage 3 Council cruisers and win. Tejo brought up star charts, showing human positions throughout the galaxy. Our intelligence network is in place on all 12 Council worlds. We have assets inside their governments, their military commands, and their research facilities. They have been so focused on keeping us weak that they never noticed us getting stronger. The ship shuddered slightly as it dropped out of hyperspace near coordinates that looked empty to any casual observer. But as they approached, a massive structure began to appear, its stealth systems deactivating to reveal one of humanity's greatest secrets. The space station was enormous, easily the size of a small moon. Its surface bristled with weapons that made Council ships look like antiques. Docking bays large enough to hold entire fleets open to welcome the returning transport. This was Olympus Station, the command center for humanity's real military. Welcome home, Jinai said quietly. As they docked, Hyunwoo could see through the station's viewports into the construction bays beyond. Dozens of warships hung in various stages of completion, each one incorporating technology that the Council believed was still centuries beyond human capability. The aliens thought humans were still struggling with basic space travel, while Earth's engineers were building vessels that could reshape the galaxy. The delegation disembarked into a bustling command center, where hundreds of people worked at stations that monitored every corner of human space. Massive displays showed the positions of Council fleets, trade routes, and political centers. Other screens tracked human assets throughout the galaxy, revealing a network of spies, saboteurs, and military units that had been hiding in plain sight for decades. General Yujin Song met them at the airlock, her uniform bearing the insignia of Earth Defense Command. She was a tall woman with graying hair and the bearing of someone who had spent her life preparing for war. The Council had never heard of her, never suspected she existed because she had been living in the shadows while their intelligence services focused on the harmless diplomats they could see. General, Hyunwoo said, saluting. Ambassador, was the performance convincing? They believe everything we wanted them to believe. Vextai actually called humans adorably optimistic after the session. General Song smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Optimistic? Yes, I suppose we are. We optimistically assumed they might be reasonable. We optimistically hoped they could be negotiated with. We optimistically believed that advanced civilizations might actually be civilized. She led them through corridors lined with tactical displays and status boards that showed the true scope of human military preparation. Our optimism has limits, however, and today, we reached them. They entered the main command center, a vast room dominated by a holographic display of the galaxy. Red markers showed Council positions, blue markers indicated human assets, and green markers represented the species that had quietly reached out to humanity for protection from Council exploitation. Status report, General Song called out. All human fleets are in position, reported Admiral Sang-Min Ko from his station. Operation Reveille is ready to commence on your order. Intelligence networks are active, added Director Jae-Sung Lim. We have real-time surveillance on all Council military assets. Diplomatic contacts with subject species are confirmed, announced Ambassador Rian Cho. The Kethmori, Velen, and Zephyrian governments are prepared to declare independence the moment we begin. General Song nodded and turned to address the room. 30 years ago, humanity joined the Galactic Council with hopes of finding our place among the stars. We offered friendship, cooperation, and partnership. In return, we received condescension, exploitation, and plans for our eventual enslavement. The room was silent except for the humming of computers and the distant sound of ships moving through the station's docking bays. Today we learned that the Council intends to begin Operation Clearance within 6 months. They plan to relocate our population to labor camps while they strip mine our worlds. They believe we are too weak to resist and too stupid to see it coming. General Song looked around at the faces of her staff, seeing the same cold anger that had been building in human hearts for 3 decades. They are wrong on both counts. Humanity has been playing a part, pretending to be the naive junior species they wanted us to be. But we are not the harmless creatures they imagine. We are the species that survived ice ages, plagues, and countless wars on our own world. We are the children of predators who learn to cooperate, not prey animals who learn to fight. She turned to the galaxy display and pointed at the council worlds. For 30 years we have been patient. We have been kind. We have been diplomatic. We have given them every opportunity to prove that advanced civilizations could actually be advanced. The displays around the room began to change, showing human military assets that had been hidden throughout the galaxy. Ships that looked like civilian transports revealed their true nature as advanced warships. Research stations transformed into military command centers. Trading posts opened hidden. The Council's flagship Dominion's Pride had been patrolling the neutral zone for 2 weeks. A massive show of force designed to remind younger species of their place in the galactic order. Counselor Vextai stood on the bridge, watching smaller ships scramble out of their path like frightened fish avoiding a predator. "Sir," called the communications officer, "we are receiving a priority transmission from an unknown source." Vextai's forearms moved in an expression of annoyance. "Unknown source? Our sensors detect everything in this system. Transfer the signal to my station." The bridge crew exchanged glances. Their sensors were the most advanced in the galaxy, capable of detecting a grain of sand at light-year distances. Nothing should be able to transmit without them knowing exactly where it came from. The main screen flickered and resolved into the image of a human male in military uniform. Vextai recognized him as one of the technical assistants from the diplomatic delegation, though this person looked nothing like the confused, bumbling engineer they remembered. "Counselor Vextai," the human said, his voice carrying none of the deference the council had grown accustomed to. "This is Admiral Sang-Min Ko of the United Earth Defense Force. You once asked Ambassador Kim if humans truly understood the realities of galactic power. Today you get your answer." Vexitai's eyes widened. "Admiral?" The humans had admirals. "How are you transmitting on this frequency?" Your security is a joke," Admiral Ko interrupted. "Your encryption codes have not changed in 50 years. Your communication protocols are so simple that our children use them as mathematics exercises. We have been monitoring every council transmission for 3 decades. Impossible. Our technology is inferior." The human's voice was calm, matter of fact. "In every measurable way. Would you like a demonstration?" Before Vextai could respond, the Dominion's Pride began to shudder. Alarms rang throughout the bridge as system after system reported failures. The massive warship, Pride of the Council fleet, was losing power. "Engineering reports total loss of main engines," called out the ship's first officer. "Weapons systems are offline. Life support is functioning but operating on backup power." "How?" Vextai demanded, his voice rising to a screech. "Quantum disruptor array," Admiral Ko explained casually. "We had to test it on something, and your ship was conveniently nearby. Do not worry, the effect is temporary. Your ship will recover full functionality in approximately 6 hours." The bridge erupted in chaos as officers tried to understand how their most advanced vessel had been disabled by humans. Vextai grabbed the communications console with all 4 hands. "This is an act of war," he shouted. "No," Admiral Ko replied. "This is an act of mercy. War would have involved destroying your ship instead of simply proving a point. Speaking of which, you might want to look outside." The main view screen switched to external cameras, and the bridge crew gasped. The Dominion's Pride was surrounded by ships that definitely had not been there moments before. Sleek, angular vessels with hull designs unlike anything in the Council database had appeared as if by magic. Their weapons were powered up and aimed directly at the Council flagship. "Stealth technology," Admiral Ko explained. "Another area where human innovation has surpassed Council science. We have been watching your fleet movements for years without you knowing we were there." Counselor Mordoon's voice crackled over the communication system from his own ship, the trade supremacy. Vextai, what is happening? Our entire fleet is reporting system failures. The humans, Vextai said, his voice barely a whisper. The humans are attacking us. That cannot be possible. Humans do not have the technology. Counselor Morden, Admiral Ko's voice cut through the communication channel. Your ship is designated Target 2. Please prepare for boarding. Through the view screen, Vextai watched as human ships approached the trade supremacy. The council vessel tried to maneuver away, but its engines sputtered and died, just like the Dominion's Pride. Small human shuttles detached from the attack ships and moved toward the disabled council vessels. You cannot board council ships, Mordun protested. The laws of space are written by those with the power to enforce them, Admiral Ko replied. As of today, that would be us. Prepare to be boarded. Back on the Dominion's Pride, Vextai watched in horror as human soldiers appeared in his ship's corridors. They moved with military precision, their weapons and armor clearly superior to anything the council forces carried. The ship's security teams, pride of the hegemony military, surrendered without firing a shot when they realized their energy weapons could not penetrate human battlesuits. How? Vextai asked again, his voice now defeated rather than angry. 30 years of preparation, Admiral Ko answered. 30 years of pretending to be the weak, harmless species you wanted us to be. 30 years of listening to your condescension while we built weapons that could destroy your entire civilization. The bridge doors opened and human soldiers entered, their faces hidden behind advanced helmets that made them look like mechanical beings. Their leader, a woman with captain's insignia, approached Vextai with her weapon lowered, but ready. Counselor, Vextai, she said, her voice electronically filtered. You are under arrest for crimes against sentient species. Crimes? What crimes? The captain activated a holographic display that showed recordings from the council's private sessions. Vextai heard his own voice discussing the plans to relocate humanity to labor camps, followed by similar discussions about enslaving other species. 3 decades of conspiracy to commit genocide, the captain explained. Illegal experimentation on sentient beings. Systematic exploitation of developing civilizations. The list is quite extensive. This is outrageous. The Council has governed the galaxy for 300 years. We brought peace and order to. You brought tyranny and oppression, the captain interrupted. The difference is that your victims were too afraid to fight back. We are not. Across the fleet, similar scenes played out on every council vessel. Human boarding parties met little resistance as they systematically captured the ships that had once been the most feared force in the galaxy. The aliens, who had spent centuries convinced of their own superiority, found themselves helpless against technology they had never imagined possible. On the bridge of his command ship, Admiral Ko watched the operation proceed with quiet satisfaction. Each council vessel was being secured without loss of human life and minimal casualties among the alien crews. This was not vengeance. It was justice, delivered with the precision that had made humanity the dominant predator on their homeworld. Admiral, reported Captain Nam Jin Ryu from the boarding team leader, all council ships are secured. We have arrested the entire senior command structure. Excellent. Begin Phase 2. Throughout council space, events were unfolding that would have been impossible for the alien leaders to imagine just hours earlier. On 12 different worlds, human special forces teams were simultaneously striking at the power centers that had ruled the galaxy for 3 centuries. On the hegemony homeworld, Lieutenant Hyejin Bei led her team through the capital city's underground tunnels. The aliens had never suspected that their grand metropolis had been infiltrated by human agents years earlier. The passages they used had been quietly constructed during routine maintenance operations, invisible to sensors that were designed to detect external threats rather than enemies already inside. Government complexes in sight, she reported through her secure communication system. Proceeding to primary targets, the hegemony's leadership was meeting in their traditional council chamber, discussing the alarming reports of human aggression in space. They had no idea that their entire building was surrounded by invisible soldiers who had been waiting for this moment for years. The doors to the council chamber burst open, revealing humans in advanced combat armor that made them look like mechanical warriors from a nightmare. The hegemony leaders, who had spent decades congratulating themselves on their military superiority, surrendered immediately when faced with weapons that could have been alien artifacts compared to their own technology. Similar operations were happening on every council world. The Trade Federation's financial centers were being secured by human teams who had been masquerading as maintenance workers and service technicians. The mining consortium's industrial complexes found themselves occupied by human soldiers who had been hiding in plain sight as equipment operators and safety inspectors. The speed and coordination of the attacks shocked the council forces. Every major government building, military base, and communication center was captured within hours. The aliens, who had spent centuries believing in their own technological superiority, discovered that humans had been living among them for decades, learning their weaknesses and preparing for this day. On Earth, General Eugene Song monitored the operations from Olympus Station's command center. Status reports flooded in from human teams across the galaxy, each one confirming another successful mission. The Council's power structure was being systematically dismantled with the precision of a surgeon removing a cancer. "General," reported Director Chang Ho No, "we are receiving surrender requests from 4 council worlds. Their local governors are asking for terms. Grant them protection in exchange for cooperation," General Song replied. The galactic communication networks had never carried a broadcast like this one. Every inhabited world, every space station, every ship in known space received the same signal simultaneously. The transmission bypassed all security systems, overrode all local controls, and appeared on every screen in the galaxy. Director Jae-Sung Lim of Human Intelligence stood before a simple backdrop showing the flags of 12 different species, not the council members, but the civilizations they had oppressed. His uniform bore no decorations, no symbols of rank or authority. He looked like exactly what he was, a civil servant preparing to present evidence to a jury. "Citizens of the galaxy," he began, his voice calm and professional. "My name is Director Lim of the United Earth Intelligence Service. For the past 30 years, I have been documenting the true activities of the Galactic Council. Today, I present that evidence to you." The broadcast switched to holographic recordings taken directly from council sessions. The galaxy watched in stunned silence as their supposed leaders discussed conquered species like livestock, debated the most efficient methods for enslaving entire civilizations, and laughed about the naive trust of younger races. Councillor Vextai's voice filled millions of homes across dozens of worlds. "The humans actually believe we take their ideas seriously. They think we are partners working toward galactic peace and prosperity." The recording continued with Morden's response. "They are like children playing at politics, so wonderfully innocent. It would be almost sad to crush that optimism if it were not so useful." The broadcast showed 3 decades of similar conversations, each one revealing another layer of the Council's contempt for the species they claimed to protect. Trade agreements designed to impoverish developing worlds, medical programs that were actually biological weapons tests, colony regulations that herded populations into convenient labor camps. On the Kethmori homeworld, Prime Minister Yuki Tanaka watched the broadcast with growing horror. Her species had trusted the Council for over a century, believing their promises of protection and prosperity. Now she was seeing evidence that every trade deal, every cultural exchange, every diplomatic agreement had been designed to exploit her people. "How long have the humans known about this?" she asked her aide. "According to the broadcast, they have been recording council sessions for 30 years, ma'am." "And they said nothing? Why did they not warn us?" The question was answered by Director I. Lim's next words. "Many of you are wondering why humanity did not reveal this information sooner. The answer is simple. We had no proof that would convince you. The Council's public face was carefully constructed to hide their true nature. Any accusations from humanity would have been dismissed as the jealous complaints of a primitive species." The broadcast showed internal Council documents discussing how to discredit any species that might threaten their control, plans to isolate whistleblowers, destroy evidence, and eliminate inconvenient witnesses. The galaxy was seeing the true scope of a conspiracy that had lasted for centuries. We chose instead to gather irrefutable evidence, Director Lim continued, to document every crime, every lie, every act of cruelty, to wait until we could present a case so complete that no one could deny the truth. Dr. Yunji Han appeared on the screen, standing in what looked like a medical facility. Behind her, holographic displays showed biological data that made viewers across the galaxy recoil in disgust. "I am Dr. Han, Chief Xenobiologist for the United Earth Medical Service," she said. "What you are about to see is evidence of illegal, biological experimentation conducted by the Council on unwilling subjects from 17 different species." The images that followed were horrific. Secret laboratories where Council scientists had tested diseases on captured civilians. Research facilities where alien children had been subjected to genetic manipulation. Medical records showing how the Council had deliberately introduced plagues to reduce populations they considered excessive. On the Velen homeworld, billions of citizens finally understood why their birth rates had been declining for 50 years. The routine immunizations provided by Council medical teams had been sterilization treatments in disguise. Their species was slowly being eliminated, and they had been thanking their killers for the privilege. The broadcast continued for hours, presenting evidence that shattered everything the galaxy thought it knew about their leaders. The Council's member species watched in growing horror as their government's crimes were laid bare. The subject species watched in growing anger as they learned the truth about their oppression. On Earth, Ambassador Hyunwoo Kim prepared for his final diplomatic mission. The Council station was in chaos, its leadership captured and its security forces in disarray. But some alien officials were still trying to maintain the fiction that nothing had changed. Ambassador Kim called Station Administrator Zalpeth as Hyunwoo entered what had once been the Council chambers. "Surely we can resolve this misunderstanding through diplomatic channels." Hyunwoo smiled, but it was not the nervous, deferential expression the aliens remembered. This smile was sharp enough to cut glass. "Misunderstanding?" he repeated. "Administrator, there is no misunderstanding. We understand you perfectly. We always have." He activated a portable holographic projector that filled the chamber with images of human military assets throughout the galaxy, ships, bases, weapons, and personnel that the Council had never suspected existed. For 30 years you believed you were dealing with a weak species that posed no threat to your power. You were wrong on both counts. Zalpeth's multiple eyes blinked rapidly, a sign of extreme distress in her species. "But the reports, our intelligence services said humans had minimal military capability." "Your intelligence services saw exactly what we wanted them to see," Hyunwoo replied. "We have been manipulating your information gathering from the beginning. Every report, every assessment, every analysis was carefully crafted to reinforce your existing prejudices." The holographic display showed how human agents had infiltrated Council intelligence agencies, feeding them false information while gathering real intelligence about alien capabilities. The Council's entire understanding of humanity had been built on lies that humans had carefully constructed. "You see," Hyunwoo continued, "we learned early in our relationship that you were not interested in honest partnership. You wanted subjects, not allies. So we gave you what you expected, a primitive species grateful for your guidance." The display shifted to show the true scope of human technological advancement, faster than light engines that made Council ships look like ancient relics, weapons that could destroy planets from light years away, defensive systems that could protect entire star systems from attack. "But how?" Zalpeth whispered. "Our technology has been developed over thousands of years." "Your technology has been stagnant for thousands of years," Hyunwoo corrected. "When you become convinced of your own superiority, you stop trying to improve. We never made that mistake." On screens throughout the galaxy, the broadcast continued with testimonies from hundreds of human agents who had been working undercover in Council space, maintenance workers who were actually military engineers, diplomatic assistants who were intelligence operatives, medical researchers who were biological weapons specialists. The galaxy was learning that humanity had been running The largest and most successful intelligence operation in galactic history. Every council world, every military base, every government facility had been infiltrated by humans who had been gathering information and preparing for this day. Commander Woojin Park appeared on the broadcast, standing on the bridge of a human warship that dwarfed the largest council vessels. Behind him, tactical displays showed the positions of human fleets throughout the galaxy. As of this moment, he announced, every major council military installation is under human control. Their fleets are disabled or destroyed. Their governments are in custody. The war is over. The statement sent shockwaves through alien populations who had not even realized a war was happening. In less than 24 hours, the most powerful military force in galactic history had been completely defeated by a species they had considered primitives. But this was not a war of conquest, Commander Park continued. This was a war of liberation. Every species in council space is now free to determine their own destiny. The broadcast showed human ships providing aid to worlds that had been exploited by the council, medical supplies for populations that had been denied proper health care, food for civilizations that had been kept deliberately malnourished, technology for species that had been prevented from advancing. On the Zephyrian homeworld, President Kim Dal-Soo received a direct communication from the Human Liberation Fleet. Her species had been planning a rebellion against council rule for decades, but they had never possessed the strength to succeed. President Kim, said the human commander, we understand your people have been seeking independence from council control. We are prepared to offer military support for your government. What do you want in return? She asked suspiciously. Centuries of council exploitation had taught her to distrust generous offers. Nothing, the commander replied. Your people deserve freedom. That is reason enough. Similar conversations were happening across the galaxy as human forces contacted every SUI. 6 months after the fall of the council, the galaxy looked nothing like it had before. Where once there had been a single authoritarian government ruling through fear and deception, now there were dozens of independent worlds working together, through choice and mutual benefit. President Rian Cho of the United Earth Government stood at the podium of the newly constructed Galactic Assembly Building, looking out at representatives from 47 different species. The chamber was designed as a perfect circle, with no head table or elevated positions. Every delegate sat at the same level, with the same voice in galactic affairs. Fellow citizens of the galaxy, President Cho began, her voice carrying to every corner of the vast chamber. 6 months ago, we gathered in the shadow of tyranny. Today, we meet in the light of freedom. The applause that followed was not the polite, fearful clapping that had characterized council sessions. This was genuine enthusiasm from beings who were experiencing true democracy for the first time in their lives. The transformation had not been easy or automatic. General Yu Jin Song had spent months working with former council military forces, gradually converting an army of oppression into a peacekeeping force dedicated to protecting the weak rather than exploiting them. The transition has been challenging, General Song reported to the assembly. Many former council officers struggled to understand the concept of serving civilian populations rather than ruling them. However, those who have embraced democratic principles have proven to be excellent peacekeepers. She gestured to the mixed crews now serving on ships throughout the galaxy. Human officers worked alongside former council personnel, teaching them new tactics based on protection rather than intimidation. The results were remarkable. Crime rates had dropped, interspecies conflicts had virtually disappeared, and trade was flourishing under fair agreements that benefited everyone involved. Director Chang Ho No of the Galactic Peacekeeping Force had perhaps the most difficult job of all, deciding what to do with the former council leaders. The evidence of their crimes was overwhelming, but humanity's commitment to justice meant they could not simply execute their former oppressors. The tribunals have reached their decisions, Director No announced to the assembly. The former council leadership has been found guilty of crimes against sentient species, conspiracy to commit genocide, and systematic oppression of subject populations. A hush fell over the chamber as delegates waited to hear the sentences. However, Director No continued, the punishments will focus on rehabilitation rather than revenge. The convicted leaders will spend the remainder of their lives in supervised communities, using their administrative skills to help rebuild the civilizations they damaged. The decision shocked many of the former subject species, who had expected and wanted harsher justice. But President Cho explained the reasoning behind humanity's approach. "We could have executed them," she said simply. "We could have imprisoned them in isolation until they died. But what would that accomplish? Dead, tyrants cannot undo the damage they caused. Living ones, properly supervised, can spend their remaining years making amends." Counselor Vextai, once the most powerful being in the galaxy, now found himself managing a refugee resettlement program on the Kethmori homeworld. His multiple arms, which had once gestured arrogantly while ordering the destruction of civilizations, now sorted medical supplies for families displaced by decades of council policy. "I do not understand," he said to his human supervisor during one of their weekly meetings. "You defeated us completely. You could rule the galaxy as absolute dictators. Why do you choose this chaos of democracy?" Commander Jin A. Lee, now serving as a rehabilitation specialist, smiled at the question she had been asked dozens of times by former council members. "Because we have seen what happens when power is concentrated in the hands of a few," she replied. "Our own history is full of tyrants and empires that collapsed under the weight of their own corruption. We learned that true strength comes from cooperation, not domination." The former council worlds were adapting to their new reality in different ways. Some embraced democracy immediately, grateful for the chance to govern themselves after centuries of oppression. Others struggled with the concept, their populations so used to being told what to do that freedom felt uncomfortable and strange. Dr. Min Ho Yang had been assigned to help with the technological transition. Many council species had been deliberately kept technologically dependent, unable to maintain their own infrastructure without constant support from the central government. "The good news," Dr. Yang reported to the assembly, "is that most species have the intelligence and capability to manage their own technology. The council simply never allowed them to do so. We are providing education and training programs to help them become self-sufficient." The results were already visible. The Velen homeworld, once forced to import basic medical equipment from council factories, was now producing advanced healing devices that surpassed anything the previous government had provided. The Zephyrian colonies, formerly dependent on council food shipments, had developed agricultural techniques that made them the galaxy's leading exporters of organic produce. But the most significant change was in how species related to each other. The council had maintained power by encouraging suspicion and competition between different civilizations. Without that artificial division, natural cooperation began to flourish. Ambassador Hyun-Woo Kim had transitioned from his role as a diplomatic spy to serving as an honest mediator between species learning to work together. His first major challenge involved a territorial dispute between the Altarians and the Synthetics that had been festering for decades under council rule. "The council told each of you that the other side was unreasonable and aggressive," he explained, to both delegations. "They fed you false information designed to keep you in conflict. Now you have the chance to hear the truth from each other directly." The negotiations took weeks, but eventually both species realized they had been manipulated into fighting over resources that were abundant enough for everyone. The territorial dispute was resolved with a cooperative mining agreement that benefited both civilizations far more than the previous competitive system. Similar success stories were happening throughout the galaxy. Species that had been enemies for generations discovered they had been victims of the same lies. Trade routes that had been restricted to benefit council cronies were open to fair competition. Cultural exchanges that had been forbidden under the old regime flourished as different civilizations learned from each other. The technological sharing was particularly remarkable. Each species brought unique innovations that, when combined with others, produced advances that surprised even human scientists. The crystalline Dominion's mineral processing techniques, combined with Velen biotechnology and human engineering, created new materials that revolutionized ship construction. Dr. Soon-Hwa Kang, now serving as Director of Interspecies Relations, coordinated these collaborative projects with an enthusiasm that would have been impossible under the Council's competitive system. We are seeing innovations emerge from cooperation that no single species could have achieved alone, she reported. The research station at the neutral zone has become a hub of scientific discovery that benefits everyone. But perhaps the most important question facing the new galactic civilization was what to do with humanity's overwhelming military advantage. Many species remain nervous about the fact that humans possessed weapons capable of destroying the entire galaxy if they chose to use them. Admiral Sang-Min Ko addressed these concerns directly during a special assembly session dedicated to military policy. The human military exists for one purpose, he stated clearly: to protect the freedom and safety of all galactic citizens. We have no interest in conquest, no desire for empire, and no intention of imposing our will on unwilling populations. To prove this commitment, humanity began the largest voluntary disarmament in galactic history. The massive war fleets that had defeated the Council were gradually converted to peaceful purposes. Battleships became exploration vessels. Platforms were transformed into research stations. Military bases were converted to emergency response centers. We are keeping enough military capability to defend against external threats and internal tyranny, Admiral Ko explained. But we are eliminating our capacity for aggressive war. A species that claims to believe in peace must be willing to prove it through actions. The process was carefully monitored by representatives from every member species, ensuring that humanity's disarmament was genuine rather than cosmetic. The transparency was unprecedented in galactic history. Never before had the dominant military power willingly opened its arsenals to inspection by potential enemies. As the first year of the new order drew to a close, President Cho found herself reflecting on how much had changed. The galaxy was not perfect. There were still conflicts, still problems, still species struggling to adapt to freedom after centuries of oppression. But for the first time in living memory, those problems were being addressed through cooperation, rather than coercion. We receive criticism sometimes, she acknowledged during her annual address to the Assembly, for being too idealistic, too trusting, too willing to give our former any